Hey guys, welcome to Medusa's Frame. My name is Joyce, and I just got back home a little bit ago after a day in Jacksonville, walking around Fort Caroline and the Timaquin Preserve there. Um, Took some videos and uploaded them one at a time. Coming back and thought I would do something real quick for you. There was a notable Black university here in St. Augustine back at the turn of the century. One where Zora Neale Hurston actually taught for a while. Actually, she taught in two Black universities in Florida, one here in St. Augustine and one in Daytona Beach. And I knew that. I knew that she had taught there. I knew that there had been a Black university here in St. Augustine. It's over on the wrong side of the tracks, if you know what I mean. West St. Augustine, over in the area where all those abandoned Black cemeteries are that I have been doing walkabouts in. So I have discovered all this. I have seen all this. I have checked into this and okay, right. But something that I noticed the other day, I was over there in that area where the university used to be, Florida Memorial College, where it used to be. And off of the main road, okay, well, it sat at the corner of West King and Holmes Road. So if you turn on Holmes Road, which was the main street that went onto the old grounds of what was there before, which was the Holmes Plantation, I noticed something that I had noticed before. The first street that you run past on Holmes is Sanatorium Road. Huh. Sanatorium Road. Clearly, what was on the property that had been a Black college. The first street. A Black college that had been there since the 1800s. Huh. Sanatorium Road. So fortunately, I have a small car, and I made that right turn so freaking fast. And it took me into what is now just a park area, what had been like the main gate entrance to the college, which is all that's left of the college, by the way, is the main gate and sign. And kind of like front of the college, it's a park now, with basketball hoops and swings and all that good stuff. So Sanatorium Road goes to a certain point, and then it cuts off, and then there's home. So you go down Sanatorium Road, and you have to turn left or right. You can't go straight. There's homes. So if you go left and you weave through the homes, you'll come again to the back end of Sanatorium Road. Isn't that interesting? So that made me curious to look into anything that I could find about the sanitarium in St. Augustine. You're looking at all that's left now, by the way. That's West King there. And then you would turn onto Old Homes. And that's a sign right there that is the historical marker telling you about it being Florida University. But yeah, I couldn't find a single thing. The only record of sanitariums in Florida that I could find were in South Florida. Huh, interesting. Why would that be hidden? Now, this school opened as a tech school and a normal school being a college to train teachers. But part of being a tech school is that it taught nursing, right? And that type of thing. So it stands to reason that there would have been some kind of medical facility on the college, right? You know, you think of big universities. Hospitals are part of the university programs, the medical programs. Certainly in Tallahassee, here in Florida, the big hospitals right on the campus. In Gainesville, same thing. So it's not unusual to think that there would have been a sanitarium there. Especially since this was a city that was hit by yellow fever twice. There would have been a need for a public health hospital. I don't know so much about tuberculosis here, but certainly a public health hospital. Anyway. So Florida Memorial College arriving here in St. Augustine was sort of a process. The first Black college that we have record of was in Live Oak, which was north and west of here. And that's supposed to have opened in 1879. And that was called Florida Memorial University. I think what now remains of all of this now in South Florida is also called Florida Memorial University. But anyway, the first Black college that we are aware of that I can find record of in Florida opened in 1879 in Live Oak. Okay, now there were other schools. There were normal schools. So got to do something with all these freed slaves, right? Got to do something with them. And their kids. So you seek out the financiers. And you start the social control early. Right? Isn't that how it works? This found building of obvious Moorish Hyperborean construction, this obvious bar magnet self-energy generating structure, is noted to be the Carnegie Library. Oh, thank you, Andrew. For the Florida Normal Industrial School in Tallahassee, Florida. That's up in that Live Oak vicinity. So thanks, Andrew. You didn't build that, you found it. And you probably made it nice inside and replaced the windows and installed desks and things like that. Bought the books, no doubt that. Well, I don't know. Maybe you didn't even buy the books. Maybe the books were there too. But anyway, all part of the social programming. So this was from that first uh, that Live Oak School, Carnegie. All these founders, all these ridiculous founders. So in 1896, the normal and tech school blended with the university and became Florida Normal Industrial Institute. And at that time, they moved to another college, to another region in the area. They expanded. Now, this was the Daytona College, this now being the Black college that is known as Bethune-Cookman University, which takes up a large portion of land. If you're driving on International Speedway from I-95 to the beach, you will go through, when you pass the racetrack, you will go through the center of town near the Halifax River. See the Halifax River right there. And Bethune-Cookman College is on both sides of the road, university. So this was part of that movement. And this apparently is, I guess, the husbandry program from there. Isn't this fascinating? You know, all this social engineering. This also happens to be a shot from Bethune-Cookman, which was the normal school in Daytona. Whatever will we do with all those freed people of color? My goodness, especially here in the cracker Klan South. Florida was a big Klan state back then. Oh dear. This is another shot of that Live Oak, Tallahassee area school. What do you think? Does that look found to you? I think it looks found because I see this Antiquitech here, copper and iron in the bracing of that. Interwoven copper and iron in both of those pillars. There was probably something here. And oh, are those mud flood windows? Yeah, you can have floods in Tallahassee. You could have a mud flood in Tallahassee. You can't where I live now. I mean, here you can't do it. There's water everywhere. I'm literally across the street from a huge river in one direction and about 6 blocks from another huger river in the other direction, and a 10-minute drive to the Atlantic Ocean. No, not even. No, I'm a 5-minute drive to the Atlantic Ocean. So you can't have a mud flood here in St. Augustine or any of the coastal regions, but Tallahassee is up in the landed part of the state. Tallahassee is part of what people call Lower Alabama. You can have mud floods there. So, you know, these guys like Carnegie that were putting up the money for all this, it kind of stands to reason that they're finding these old buildings and they're spending their money to, oh, you can see some Antiquitech there. They're spending their money to make them habitable and all that good stuff. And because, you know, you gotta do something with Got to do something with them free black folk so they don't riot. So you might as well social engineer as much as you can, right? Set up colleges and kind of just like now what's going on in the public school system and all that nonsense. You watch what you teach them. You control them through what you teach them. This was another, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, I got all jumpy fingered there. This is part of the campus in Eatonville, which was where there was another normal school. Eatonville is a historically famous historical national place, significant for Black history kind of place. In now, I'm not sure technically if it's Orange County or Seminole County, but it's in the Orlando area. It's on the outskirts of Orlando. And again, I'm not sure. Orlando is in Orange County. The next county east is Seminole County. I'm not sure if it's Seminole or Orange, but anyway, it's Eatonville. And this was Booker T. Washington Hall. You see? Robert Huntington Normal and Industrial School, Eatonville. That great water tower. Does that look like a found building to you? Not quite so much antiquitech, but look at that big mansard roof. Mudflood? I'm not sure. Eatonville figures prominently into this because Zora Neale Hurston taught at the St. Augustine School, and she actually grew up in Eatonville. She was born in Alabama in a city I'm not sure how to say correctly. But her family moved to Eatonville when she was 3, and she grew up in Eatonville. Was in Florida for a good bit of time. So this is a shot of the Florida School in St. Augustine. That's interesting, isn't it? Does that look found? What the heck is that? It's not a water tower. What is that? I don't think that looks found, nor does that look found. That looks a little bit more substantial, but I can't tell. But seriously, what is that? Maybe whatever this originally was. Maybe this was found, but so anyway, this was built on the old Holmes plantation, which is demarcated now by Holmes Road. Interesting that a Black university that became infamous in the civil rights movement because Martin Luther King visited there would be on old plantation land. Oh my goodness. So in 1918, the culmination of Florida Memorial University that blended with Florida Normal and Tech Institute moved one of its campuses to St. Augustine. So there were several. You saw one in Eatonville. You'll see as we proceed that there were normal schools, Black colleges, interestingly all over in clearly found buildings by these great, beneficent, philanthropic social engineers. So this is a shot of the one in Jacksonville. That's north of here. That's where it was today, actually, in Jacksonville. Let's see if we can figure out if that was found. It's hard to tell. You know, I see this and I think that it's found, right? Because that's Antiquitech. Can't see if it's mud flooded, though you could have mud flooding in Jacksonville, depending on where in Jacksonville it was. Certainly not out at the beaches. That looks like a brick building back there. If that's a brick building, I guarantee that was found. This one, I'm not sure. But that is so suspicious. Okay, now here's another one. See, they were all over. Clearly a found building. Clearly. Horseshoe magnet. Energy generators. There's so many people you can't tell if it's mud flooded or not. Got the stuff in the windows, right? Resonator. Oh, is that flagpole there as a plasma collector? So the Florida Normal School and Industrial Institute here in Jacksonville, here in St. Augustine, excuse me, was very popular and very well attended. And Zora Neale Hurston taught there on and off, already being in Florida. Eatonville to St. Augustine now in a car on the freeway is about a 2-hour drive. Little more effort in the 40s, but nonetheless, something that was doable. But she was here the longest in 1942. There was an apartment at the corner of King Street and Ponce de Leon Avenue, which is US 1. It's gone now, but it's a little triangular park that's Zora Neale Hurston Park, and that's where the apartment was that she lived. And the distance from that apartment building to the college was, well, it would have been a streetcar ride. It would have been, I mean, it's right now, depending on traffic, a 5-minute car ride. I think the streetcar ran down there. Whatever it was, she was relatively close. She was certainly in the area. Maybe 15 or 20 blocks away. Another found building at another Florida Normal School with that big, wonderful southern porch. Oh my. Oh dear, what's this? You gotta love all these philanthropists who just made sure that these Black students had places. These Black students had places to go. There was a famous, horrible civil rights enigma that occurred here. I talked about it in the video I did several videos ago. Excuse me. Where I was walking around downtown St. Augustine, Old Town St. Augustine, and walked into the old Place de Constitution, where the slave market is, and where the steps of the freedom fighters who walked right into the park and faced down the Klan and got hurt pretty badly and arrested for it, but nonetheless they did that, are well, what they did is they took the imprints of shoes basically and cast them in bronze, and then they inlaid those bronze footprints into the sidewalk in the Place de Constitution to mark the walk of these freedom fighters. This all happened in 1963 when they stood down the Klan and got the crap beat out of them. And that's also when they were doing sit-ins. We had a Woolworths luncheonette downtown, Old Town, where there was a sit-in. And there was an incident where there was a motel on the beach side, and Black folks couldn't get in the pool, and a whole bunch of students from Florida Normal College jumped in the pool, and there's old camera footage of the manager of the pool dumping chlorine and acid into the pool to get them out. And if you can believe this, this is so ridiculous. They couldn't go into the ocean. They weren't allowed on the beaches. How ridiculous is that, right? Oh, Florida was a bad place. But they couldn't go into the ocean. They couldn't be on the white beaches. And there were wade-ins, as they called, where groups of students from Florida Memorial College, Florida Normal School, would walk on to the beach and wade into the ocean. And there are photos of the police with dogs and billy clubs beating the crap out of them to get them out of there. Yeah, and there was an attempt on Martin Luther King's life here. A lot of history. I mean, that the end result of that is a gentleman by the name of Butler, who was also buried at Woodlawn Cemetery, one of those abandoned cemeteries out there on West King, was able to use his connections and bought a stretch of what was then completely unpenetrable cypress swamp and beach, and turned it into a Black resort. And now it's a community called Butler Beach. But anyway, that's a whole other story. And that's in my Woodlawn Abandoned Cemetery video if you want to know more about that. But anyway, let me get back to this. So here's another Black normal school. This one's in Oregon. Huh. Would you look at that? That's pretty found. And so mud flood. Isn't that gorgeous? That bar magnet right there. Look at old Hyperbarian doors. This is brilliant. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, it doesn't look like the bells in there, but I can't tell what that is. Anyway, so there were Black normal schools all over. Now, a normal school doesn't mean a Black school. a normal school means it's a college to teach teachers. But what I've included in here are Black normal social engineering programs for freed Blacks and their children at that time in the world. This is another one up in Tallahassee, so this would have been that original one that we spoke of, Live Oak. Huh. Hmm. Hmm. Look, you can see, like if that's level right there, you go all the way across. Let's see if I can do this. And you go all the way across. So there's like that much that's underground, right? Interesting. No, I didn't, this is interesting. I wonder what used to be up here. See that. Hurston magnet. So this is part of the school system before it started branching off and came down to St. Augustine. Look at those chimneys. What's all that? Is that Antiquitech? Just looks sculpted, doesn't it? Lots of Antiquitech. And those look like radium chimneys too. Yeah, so in 1963, here in St. Augustine, and again, this is the St. Augustine, part of the St. Augustine campus, there was that big melee here. And there were actually Klan leaders that came from all over the country. There were Klan leaders that came all the way from California here to St. Augustine during that time. And it basically wasn't safe for Black folks to walk down the street back then. The Klan was everywhere, and there were crackers, as they're called, right? The white folk of the woods here. Done and after uppity Black folk. And we had a college in town, so we had uppity Black folk, uppity young Black folk whose parents knew what had really happened. They'd lived through it. It's another building that was on the campus. That really looks found. Fireplaces. I see what appears to be a raise, but again, I don't think you couldn't have had much flooding here, St. Augustine. There's too much water. I mean, we don't need mud floods. We just get flooded all the time. We don't need mud floods. The city still floods. No need for mud floods. More found buildings. Look at that. God, that's beautiful. Radium chimney. Horseshoe magnet there. Plasma collectors. Interesting. another normal college for Black folk that was being erected during that time of social engineering. It was all up near Tallahassee. Where's the bell? Where's the bell? Doesn't look flooded though, does it? Well, I don't know, what's that? Maybe it was flooded. So this is the old entranceway. That's still standing. Of course, this photo is not a new photo, but it shows this lovely young woman on her first day. Lovely young woman and young man on their first day. So all these buildings and things are gone. And the entirety of this arch is all that's left. But some of this tree line is still there. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was born and raised here. Well, he wasn't born and raised in the city of St. Augustine. He was born, and he still lives out in the country about a half an hour west of here. Still lives in the country. But he remembers when what was left of this college after it was abandoned, burned. And it's one of those things that if you go looking for it, there's no record of it anywhere. Whatever was left, whatever they didn't tear down and harvest after it being abandoned in the 60s, in fact, in 68, I believe, they moved the operation to Miami. But at some point, after they abandoned the college, they left the arch there. And the buildings that were still standing after a certain point all mysteriously burned. And you can't tell that if you go by there now. You just see the arch. Actually, there is what appears to be a school with a big track. I don't know for sure, but because it's right there, kind of in the vicinity, I tend to think that that's school. I think it's a high school. It could be, it's junior high or high school. It's not elementary school. That's all from the college. I think that track and whatever facilities they have, and maybe some of the buildings even, I don't know, are from the college. But yeah, so he said that he remembers when all the buildings burned down all at once. So much so that you could see the dark cloud out in the country where he lived. And what he suggested to me is that I go down there and walk around in the trees, and I will find the old charred ruins of some of the buildings. And I did. I found old charred remains, charred foundational things. Interesting, in the trees. You know, if there's a white college that burned down, it'd be all over Google, wouldn't it? So here you can see this is the girls' dorm from the St. Augustine Middle School. Does that look found? Look at that. I'm thinking that looks found. "110 acres. It's College took up 110 acres on the old plantation. Isn't that's just so funny? You gotta laugh at that, right? So funny. Have I come to the end of my photos? Oh, no, I need to reduce that some more. I got a couple more. Zora. So there's Zora. Now, if you're old like me or you're literary, you know about Zora Neale Hurston. And what you might most know her for was she wrote Color Purple. The most famous book is Their Eyes Were Watching God. She was a singer in theater, an anthropologist, a playwright, an author, educator, and a social justice warrior. Born poor at a crucial time in the South. Had the opportunity to come and teach at the Florida Normal School. Things being what they are, and her accomplishing unbelievable things at an absolutely impossible time, she still died broke. And this is her grave in Fort Pierce, Florida. At Guiding Heavenly Rest Cemetery in Fort Pierce. She died in 1960. She was poor and not well. And the story goes that the author, Alice Walker, was looking for her gravestone in this cemetery, learning that she was buried here. And she couldn't find her, but she did find an unmarked grave. She found one unmarked grave in the cemetery. She knew that Zora Neale Hurston had been buried in an unmarked grave because there was no money for a stone. So she believed that the one unmarked grave was indeed Zora. So she paid for all of this. She paid for a new cover for the tomb. She paid for the stone. And I'm not sure if she installed this commemorative or the city or some other group did, but none of this was here before Zora passed away. This is the Self Alice Walker Commission. Sad and interesting. Let's go back to this one. Send it here. Let's end it right here. You'll also remember, if you saw it, in my walking around the Woodlawn Cemetery, the last abandoned Black cemetery in St. Augustine. There were actually two very important placements in there. One was Butler, the man who established the Black resort that became Butler Beach. And the other one was Nathan Collier, who was the president of the Florida Normal School, Florida Memorial College. here in St. Augustine. He's also laid to rest there. So West St. Augustine had a lot of interesting stuff going on. Huge community for the free Black folk. And it's still the Black part of town, shall we say, considered the wrong side of the tracks. Though oftentimes the wrong side of the tracks gets hippified by youngsters moving in with money and hip ideas. And there's a little bit of that going on, but it's still nice. There's a bulk food store and a vegetarian restaurant and a couple breweries and a wine tasting place. But then, you go a block down and there's a guy with his smoker out there every day, carving brisket up for you, fried chicken, all that good stuff. But what's also down there is a lot of old antiquity. And so we saw from the photos that I showed you here, there are a lot of old, powerful buildings that no longer stand, but were in that vicinity. And would originally have been part of the plantation. So Mr. Holmes and his plantation would have been making use of some of those buildings if he had someone smart enough to figure out how to use any of the antiquity, right? The water treatment plant for the city of St. Augustine is down there. Very ornate, very, very ornate red brick and limestone and concrete building. Very, very ornate. There are actually 4 buildings in the complex that are screaming red brick Tartaria. And then right across King Street from where the gate is now, all that's left of Florida Memorial College, the gate, is what's now the fire station. But the building mimics one of the buildings further east on King Street at the water treatment plant area. So we definitely had a grid going on down there. There are a lot of people that have done work on water treatment plants that are older than we think, right? There is more than one theory that star forts were water treatment plants. And in some cases, during the age of trolley parks and amusement parks, that there are rides from some of those parks that look like what a person would recognize as what still stands at water treatment plants. Fascinating. So there's a lot back there in West St. Augustine. And it's interesting to consider the buildings that were on the land that was the plantation. I wonder if any of it still worked. I wonder if any of those houses still had access to free energy. I'll never know. But it's nice to ponder. I certainly think so. So that's what I have for you today. Just kind of a quick one. I never did find out where the sanitarium was or what purpose it served. If it was part of the Black college system or if it was older than that. as I said, we had 2 pretty devastating yellow fever outbreaks here. So, the hospital that was in Old St. Augustine, which was on the other side of San Sebastian River from this part of St. Augustine. It's pretty small and pretty basic. Would not have been able to accommodate a city of yellow fever sick patients. So I don't know. Maybe I'll find out one day. But now every time I drive by it, I think, why are they hiding this? Why? Even they cut the road in half, They build houses, they split the road in half to build a track of houses, and then the road continues on the back on the other side. But it's also back in a part that is not very developed. And because there has been so much genocide and slaughter in this city, whether it's a good neighborhood or a bad neighborhood, I always tend to think that where there is a swath of undeveloped land amidst homes, it's because there's something hiding on that land. It might be graves. What's in the graves? Like where I was today, acres and acres and acres of what they call Timucuan Ecological Preserve. Wow. The Spanish wiped out the Timucua people in under 200 years. And the only reason that we know that they were between 6 and 7 feet tall is because there are old drawings of them that were made by the original French that landed here. Or from what we are allowed to have revealed to us by the archaeological evidence of the big deal noise of when graves were found at the Fountain of Youth. Right. But anyway, so it was Zora, and I'll let you let all that sink in and think what you want to think. Sanitariums and black colleges, a Klan, running the college out of town. What people would have had to have gone through. This generation right here. What a generation, right? What a generation, these people. Their parents and grandparents and aunties remember being slaves. What stories, what richness, what ache, what drive, what purpose they had. Anyway, so thank you again for hanging out with me. This is Joyce with Medusa Was Framed saying aloha.